What's happening, everyone? We're back. It's been a minute, but End Product is back for episode 97. I feel like it's taken forever to get to that 100, hasn't it, Quinny? Like we've had a few breaks in comms over the past few weeks and months, and that like elusive 100th episode just feels like it's taken forever. But we're getting close now. We're definitely edging ever closer to it. How you been, mate? I've been away on holiday, but you've been grafting and grinding. I've been seeing the videos popping up all over the place. How you been?
Aye, I've been good, mate. It's been a busy one. And I was just thinking there as you're saying that, we've definitely got an L100 for the podcast, but we've got some DNPs in there. So we just need to fill up a proper catalogue of it. But yeah, looking forward to it. 97 for us today. We're not going back to episode 1 for this one. But yeah, man, I'm good. Cracking away. And yeah, I guess in terms of all that stuff, it's been a wild couple of days, wild weekend or so. Lots of videos and streams. In game week 1, I think everyone had, like a lot of people I've seen anyway, that had been here from, like, let's say the middle of the 23-24 season, who had like stuff to put into place and had to kind of finagle their gallery. Feels like a lot of people did pretty well at the weekend. There's a lot of good vibes and wins going around, lots of reward videos and stuff as well, which is great. So yeah, looking forward to this one, mate. How have you been?
Yeah, good. Had a good holiday. I was just talking off air, actually. Like, obviously, we always like to get into our like end product, don't we, at the beginning of the show, like what we've won of late and how, if we had any joy over the weekend, usually. And I'm pretty sure we haven't spoken about this on the podcast, but I did manage to win Cap 240 Super Rare while we was away. So I got another unique card in the gallery. I managed to scrape a nice little win there of Usman Diao, who is a centre back at Midtjylland in the Danish league. So for me, that's quite a random one because I don't have many uniques in my gallery, but one of the others I do have is Lee Han-bom. So I've now got kind of like Lee Han-bom, Usman Diao is definitely the first choice at the moment. Lee Han-bom, second choice. So I've kind of got like a centre back under 23 handcuff there. And he's been of use to me, to be fair, in like super rare competitions, especially coming to the end of that, all-star U23 super rare division where you still got that 50% bonus for the unique card. Obviously we don't get that now. So he's been quite useful already. I've kept hold of him, but I'm definitely open to selling him if anyone's listening and is a collector of Midtjylland and wants an in-season unique, then I could definitely have my arm twisted into letting him go. But yeah, for me, he's kind of being used as a super rare or a rare, depending on how the game week falls. But not a bad card to win. I think in terms of what was in the unique pool, that was about as good as I could have hoped for. I think a U23 as opposed to like a 37-year-old or something like that. I was super happy. So that was a great little win. And obviously I won a super rare as well. I'd have to go back and remind myself who the super rare one was, but I don't think it was particularly useful. If memory serves me, I'm going to go into my gallery and see if I can find who that is. But what about yourself? Have you had any decent wins in the last few weeks?
I think since we've been on, like we had like the return of the SPFL for sure, and I definitely picked up a couple of quid and a couple of OK cards and whatever. But game week 1, I managed to win last night. Serencio Somerville is a tier 3 champ card. Yeah, I thought that was not too bad. I've got them listed at the moment. I'll definitely sell them because those champ rares are like, I just want them at win cards and I'll sell those ones because I don't think I'll get a good enough team for champ in season. So nice to see that kind of come in quite quickly. But he is a forward, and like the problem I've got with him is like he does look second string at West Ham. If you look at like Bowen's captain, Kudus is going to play, Paqueta's going to play. He's not a striker like Fulkrug or even Antonio.
Yeah.
But he's a guy that could put an L5 together, like and help the team. I could probably play him in a team 3 or something like that. Maybe flick our way in. So I'm a wee bit split, I'm a wee bit undecided on it. Exciting player, really high quality tier 3, I thought. And I got a few promotions and stuff like that. And yeah, we'll get into it a wee bit more on the show, but nothing significant.
Yeah, I've just had a look and I found actually I did win a pretty decent super rare coming first. I won a Lawrence Shankland. So that was a good win. Haven't had too much use for him just yet. I know we've had a little bit of a break in the SPFL for the last couple of weekends. So he didn't bring home any bacon on his first game week up front. But yeah, that was actually a decent little pair of cards to win for winning Cap 240. And RIP Cap 240, man. I'm going to miss it. I don't know about you, but that cap 250 didn't hit quite the same for me in its first sort of week of asking. I actually went really heavy in it across all scarcities because my gallery is just, I think it's been beyond me how spread out it actually is. And in that game week where we didn't have maybe Bundesliga, but we had pretty much everything else, I do rely quite heavily on my Bundesliga cards to really hit heavy in champ. And because of that, it meant it made more sense for me to actually use some of my decent cards in the cap 250. And then it kind of dawned on me when that game week closed, and it's like cap 250 rare had about 50 million entrants in it, and you're like, yeah, the chance of me winning anything in that pretty slim. But I did manage to scrape together some essence wins and some market credit out of the boxes. So not the worst game week, but in terms of like the excitement of opening some cards at the end of that week, not quite there. I managed to scrape one tier 5 limited card, and that was it.
Well, that's one thing that I think, especially like I think I watched almost every reward video I could last night. Just in the spirit of Tuesday night, that's the way it goes, isn't it? And you know, like I won a card, and I felt good about that. But I could see in myself, like, there wasn't actually too much chance of winning like 5 or 6 cards in this one. And again, depending on what reward videos you watch on YouTube, some managers have got many a team and many scarcities, like a McBride or in the Penfez. And then if you look at like the likes of myself or Harry or Jack or, you know, whoever else, perhaps there's not quite the same thing there. Basically, what I've definitely had a little bit of a feeling of after this first kind of opening salvo, and it's something I kind of thought might have been a wee bit of the writing on the wall, but actual card rewards are not a thing of the past, right? But like rolling all your teams out into the weekend and saying, oh, I'm going to win 2 or 3 cards, that's not really a given anymore. It is way harder to, I don't know if it's just way harder or if there's a bit of a mixture, obviously, because they need to keep some of those rewards back for the essence to satisfy all the card factory stuff. So it's just, it's an interesting like change of stuff that I think it was really felt when you're actually in the leaderboards now.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think over the weekend it was looking like I was going to win quite a few boxes, and then obviously as you get close to the end of the weekend closing, you start to realize, oh, I've lost that one, I've lost this one, lost the card there, lost that there. So I think I ended up with a few boxes to open, which is all right. I don't know about you, but I think that the opening the reward box and then having to go somewhere else to actually open the box is a bit clunky. I'd rather just open it as part of the sort of card reward opening process. Do you know what I mean?
Like, yeah, like perhaps when I agree, but I do quite like the opening it in the factory. And like,
I like the factory.
You could save your boxes up as well. That's one thing I was thinking after doing my reward thing is like, you know, you can maybe, if I had to be aware of something, you can maybe save a few of them up, you know, and have a mad mass opening or something like that. So I do agree it's definitely not smooth, but maybe they've got the claim all button there. So I don't really know, but I'm with you. Like, unless you I think what you would need to do is you would need to move the card reveal into the factory.
Right. Yeah.
And then it's just you're in the factory and it's like you've got a card reveal and then you've got boxes and then the essence, it's all there. Because when you're in there and the box gives you essence, it's all right there. Click, click, click. That's all quite fine. But I think that's what would need to happen probably. And then you're adding the money into the factory as well then, because it's just that's the last thing that's missing kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I went after 250 as well, but I did it absolutely last.
Yeah, most of my entries were 250s, and then I think I had some what looked like good champ entries, but they all kind of flopped on me. There was a lot of good scores, but as we've said on this, the captain pick is so important. And I had that wrong way around this week. My captains actually all did pretty well, apart from Mbappe. But they all done really well. I think I hit a couple of hundreds in the captain picks, and then the rest of the team let it down. So I was like really excited because I think going into the weekend, I'd managed to like have a really good Friday and Saturday morning. Like my captains absolutely smashed. And I actually had an in-season contender entry that was projected first all over the weekend. I was just waiting for my goalkeeper to play, who had a pretty good fixture. And then he got rested. He weren't even in the squad. I'm like, are you kidding me? I bought George Broom from Rosario, got him in season, really cheap, like I thought great value. I like the idea of having an in-season goalkeeper because then you can really flex the like the non-in-season card, you can go with something really strong that has a great fixture. So that was my thinking behind buying an in-season goalkeeper. Didn't need to be expensive. So I did manage to finish in the money still, even with the 4 playing, but I hit 2 100s, including my captain pick. And then my other forward scored a 60 because he got a goal. So the team absolutely smashed, and I just thought, if this goalkeeper just plays, I'm looking at a top 5 finish. And he didn't even start. He weren't in the squad, and he's missed 3 fixtures in the last couple of years. It's I just didn't expect him to get dropped. Stylish in the chat saying that Rosario have a hectic midweek match. Yeah, but I just don't expect the goalkeeper to be rotated out for that. He's a bit of a mainstay in their starting 11. He's only missed, I think 2 or 3 games in the last 40. So of all weekends for him to be dropped, I was just I was sat at my mum and dad's having lunch, and I was like, I'm going to win a couple of £100 this week off of in season. And I ended up winning 40, which is not to be sniffed at. Great winning some cash still, especially in a very busy contender pool. So yeah, onwards and upwards. Fingers crossed this next time that the captain pick hits as heavy as it did, that I don't hit a DMP at some point in the weekend.
Yeah, that's a sore one, man. And it reminded me I had a DNP Dyson Maeda in the first SPFL special weekly, and I think everyone, or a lot of people, get hit by that. So it's got a wee bit of a flashback. Obviously, your goalkeeper one's way more painful. But Mikey Bassett throwing up here that the nerf of the boxes is much better. Not a single level up this game week. I got 1, but I opened 5 rare boxes or something. I did sort of well, I suppose. So yeah, I quite liked the mixture of it wasn't all level ups. There was a good amount of essence floating around, which was good fun.
I like we're touching a level up.
You got a level up.
My 1 super rare box that I won got a level ups in it. It's great. Thanks for that. It's definitely not fun winning level ups right now.
Yeah, well, aye. A little bit of a mixture. I'm kind of out of guys that need level ups, so I could do with stacking a bunch of them up. But the cap 250 we had last week, and then for this coming week, the special, we've got France, and then is there another one, or is it just France? I can't remember. Let's have a wee check. But they did say to Stish for the new Sorare, is just anti-stack. I knew there was another one.
Oh, anti-stack.
Yeah, so anti-stack's the classic special weekly, it looks like, and then this France one is probably an in-season effort. 3 cards minimum with in-season bonus, and it's cash. And then anti-stack is maximum 1 player from each team. So you got to build a 20 team for this one to try and go out. And they did put a lot of onus on this dish, didn't they? That the special weeklies will pick up a bit of the slack that the rest of the competition pool being absent would have, filled that void it would have created, sort of thing. And having a look at the prize pool, we get stars for the top 5. I'm looking at rare. Prize pool's paid down to 400 for T5s and T4s. It gets interesting for the top 70, I would say. Maybe the top 180, depends on the strength of your squad. So, depending on entrance, it's going to be in the thousands, certainly, you would think.
Yeah.
That could be halfway okay. Super to have a wee peek at that. 50 cards, 1 star. Interesting. And at limited, we get stars for the top 25. That's fun. And payout goes down to 1,600 for T5s and 4s. It starts to get interesting to the top 700, top 300, depending on your strength. But the cap 250, obviously, you kind of had the egg on your face from the first time after throwing yourself in there the Royal Rumble with all your big cards. With this one, and then the one after this is going to be the fighting special. So, a yellow card is worth 15 points. It's basically a decisive. A red card is a negative decisive, and fouls are +5 or something.
So you just
like
want
that.
bookings then and fouls.
You want bookings and fouls, but you don't want a red card. A red card will kill you.
That is so random. I didn't even I missed that. But I mean, if you off the top of your head, what are your kind of pick out 3 players that you think are going to absolutely smash at that kind of game? Not necessarily, don't need to see if they're the fixture or whatever, but off the top of your head, what players are you picking for that game mode, bookings and fouls, but no reds?
Robin Lenormand is the first player that comes to mind for me, or Stefan Savic. You need a guy like that. You need a wee butcher at the back. This is a vote, so everyone went for the fighting special here. They did it on their Twitter. If you don't follow them on Twitter, that's Sorare. You can't really miss it. And this is the fighting special. So yeah, yellow card is +15. Fouls are +2. I beg your pardon. And then no change for red card, so it's still a negative decisive. So you're playing with fire if you've got an absolute nutter in your team. But that's the game week after this one.
Interesting. I like the idea of that. I mean, I know I'd like to scour my gallery now, and sort of in a way that I don't think Sorare Data allows you to check like fouls per 90 or anything like that. I'd have to like manually go into like FB Ref or something like that and check individuals that I think might have a high foul rate. But yeah.
Somebody needs to get Paqueta a Sorare team because it won't get him in trouble like the bookies do. You know, he can get himself a Sorare team, pick himself, and then I just make sure he fouls like mad and just stays on a yellow.
I've definitely got a
for the win.
That keep managing to pick up yellows. So like, I'll have a quick look at them for the last few weeks. But there's definitely a few in my gallery that I'm sure just have a bit of a knack for getting yellows. So yeah, I think off the top of my head, I'm thinking, I don't know why, but Granit Xhaka like popped into my head. I just think those like combative midfielders who need to keep their head on, but don't find themselves
just stop a counter attack by dropping an elbow at someone.
Deep lying midfielders, or even creative mids, that maybe are on the edge of the box or a corner and have to stop a breakaway.
Like Madison.
I think Kamada at Palace gave one of those away this weekend, a really bad one that was not needed. So if that's anything to go off, if we're expected to see more of that from him this season, he might be worth a pick. But yeah, that is interesting. It's going to be hard to scout that with the tools at our disposal across the sort of various platforms at the moment, unless there is one that I don't know of that allows you to filter and like sort by yellow cards or fouls. But at the moment, I know we can see it, but you can't filter by it. So
yeah, you want somebody playing Barca or Man City, Ian Sorare says.
Yeah, a good counter attack inside that kind of possession-based thing, as Ian says. Yeah, someone who likes to slow the game down every now and then. Yeah, interesting. Definitely going to be interesting to see.
Interesting from Tom Cuddy. 2 yellows. If it's not a straight red, they get 2 yellows. Cancels out the negative DA. So just got the foul boosts. Maybe we'll see how it shakes out. That's an interesting. Yeah,
I doubt that will do that because I think by default, once it hits a red, it becomes a red, doesn't it? Like you still get a negative decisive if it's a second yellow, don't you? In the game.
Yeah. Sorare Data does kind of show it, but it doesn't show you in the setting you want it in. Like, you really need to go and drill into like the league stats to see all the individual metrics, but it's a very hard thing to like splice out across Europe or across the fixture, across the game week.
Yeah.
But no, you're right there, Rico, man. It does have it. You just need to go digging for it and then aggregate some data yourself.
That's it.
So the special weeklies, but I did, and I know the French one gives away money, the Belgian one gave away money, the SPFL one gave away money, with in-season requirements somewhat laxed on those ones. The Cap 250 was all cards. The non-stack, anti-stack is all cards. I suppose the fighting one is going to be all cards as well. Is this what we expected from special weeklies? Are they good enough? I'm kind of undecided. I did quite like the SPFL one, but it's kind of through, like, that's a league specific special weekly. It's not quite the same as, like, I think we would have all expected on some level there would have been the fighting special and there's money in it, or the Cap 250, and maybe not thresholds, that'd be misleading, but like there's some sort of prize in it. Top 10, top 20, something, I don't know.
I think the only issue I've got with specials at the moment is just how many entries there's going to be in them. I don't know if that's, if that we should have maybe expected that. I don't know. But the anti-stack special, for example, is a little bit, that is going to be a bit wild in the sense that you can put anything in there. If you're like, I don't know about you, but I've never been a massive stacks player. Like maybe the half and half or the old sandwich, as we used to call it. But I very rarely play a full like 5-team stack, or maybe just a few pairings here and there. But so I think I could probably put some pretty good lineups into that, except the fact that, are you going to be playing your strongest lineups in that? I know there's star rewards out there, but you're going to be competing against tens of thousands. I think if you look at the limited one already, there's already nearly 15,000 entries in it.
Yep.
The rare's got 3,600. Super rare 283. I think I'm definitely going to be looking at this for super rare without a doubt, because I think the spread of super rare cards, and especially goalkeepers at the moment, it's a bit thin, thinly spread across everything. So this is probably going to be my best chance of winning anything in any super rare division. But for the rare and limited, I think it'll be a little bit of a let's see what I've got left. But I'll certainly have lineups for that, and I will have entries, I'm sure. I'd be surprised if I don't have like 3 in rare and 3 in limited. But super rare might might be a potential there for me to go a bit heavier. The fact that there is a star there is good, but you know, we're still probably likely to see over, you know, close to 1,000 entries there, I reckon, at least for the super rare by the end of the. You know, we've only just started the game week, really, haven't we? So come Friday, it's going to be quite a lot more, definitely.
Yeah, I think so. I was expecting it. Like, let's see how it shakes out and it develops, but like some sort of access to like a cash prize pool with, and again, I know the league specific ones that were like in season focused, it was like 3 in season cards you need, which at rare level, at any level really, I don't think that's a bad requirement for the most part, you know. But I definitely would have expected at some point, and let's see how it does shake out. But like one of these be the flagship, you know, special weekly. It's not married up with a league one. Like, so this weekend we've got France and Anti-Stack. So like with the fighting one, I don't know if I'll need to go back and check the calendar if there is like a Belgian one that's on, or, you know, an enhanced Premier League something or whatever. But yeah, like, you know, they didn't do this for the Champions League. Like the Champions League is more like what I would have thought could have happened with some of the special weeklies at the weekend, but it is cards, cash, you know. But that does have that has a full-on in-season requirement of 4 rares. I think it's even the same for super rare, actually, isn't it? Like you need 4 supers, etc. So that's a little bit more, from Sorare's perspective, to us, like a bit more unforgiving. Like you need the cards, end of story. So yeah, like I don't know. I don't know if I'd say I'm confused or disappointed or whatever, but I'm definitely not all the way up with like, is this what was planned? Like, this is a wee bit lackluster in some areas.
Yeah, they could still. It's still in the sort of teething stage, I guess, isn't it? So we can't like bear like complete judgment on it just yet. But I do think that it feels like it might be a bit easier to win cards. But I think the lack of essence and boxes at the moment maybe is because that's also there now. Like people are expecting to see that maybe also in the specials, and without that, they maybe don't look quite as, you know, if they haven't got cash and they haven't got potential boxes, maybe people feel a little bit hard done by there without even realizing it, because we never had that before when we were talking about this new era of so rare. But now we've got it, it's become the norm that there's cards but also boxes and potentially cash, or you know, it isn't quite on par with what the offering was pre, you know, the cap 240 was cards and cash. This doesn't feel equal to it, in my opinion, especially with the level of competition. There's no beat the game mode here. It is just a leaderboard, and if you don't add maybe some cash in there, some essence at least, yeah. And I think that's another thing, is like the boxes are great fun, but there's no reason they couldn't have like an essence only. I would be more interested in winning essence than winning level ups. You know what I mean? Or you know, I've managed. I think I've got like, I won a £20 market credit yesterday, which I think is actually pretty decent. Because when you look at these special weeklies where it's like, oh, you need 2 free in season cards. If I need one more and I've got I think I've got £27 of market credit, I can go out and spend 52 quid, and you know, it's only going to cost me 27 of my own cash. Because I've won a couple of market credits there, and it just like entices me in a little bit. So market credit's quite an interesting one, and I didn't win I won my first one just the other day, so that could be interesting to add in. But yeah, I'm not sure. For me, I need to see cash and cards to feel like this is a true replacement for the cap mode. But maybe we just had it too good, Quinny. I don't know.
Yeah, perhaps. I think with Essence, but like, I think that's probably the thing that they're trying to manage the most carefully, because it is like a new element, and it's one that could run wild on them, like if they didn't manage it properly. So I don't expect boxes and Essence to pop up galore everywhere, because like it only takes them to maybe underestimate or overestimate something by a small amount, and then there's a very big problem on their hands. So I probably don't have expectations for boxes, but it is more like, not a threshold based payout of any kind, really, like hit a guaranteed amount of points and get something, but just more like the Champions League leaderboards that we got, but it's for the fighting thing, or it's for anti-stacks, you know, and it's like there's cards, there's money, maybe there's coins and level ups if they have to put some other stuff in to, you know, just entice people to put that second team out or whatever.
I do wonder what happens with coins now. Like, what's the point of that right now? Unless you would need to buy level ups. I mean,
Training teams. That's the only thing, isn't it?
I'm not. I don't know. Like maybe I'm missing a trick here, but I think I paid to have like 4, so I've got 4 training teams. I don't have the max of what is it, 7 or 8, whatever it is. Maybe I'm missing a trick there. Maybe I need to go and buy. But I think because we had those like merch drops, shirts, and that, a part of me is just like, no, keep the coins because you never know. Might get in the mix with a signed shirt, especially with maybe people winning less coins now, and it's like, well, I've got a stack of coins there, and if I just spend them and then something good happens and I miss out, I'll be kicking myself because I've just bought a couple of training teams or something. But yeah, I don't know what they haven't had much to speak about on coins for a little while, have we?
No.
Since the boxes came and the essence and that, I think there was that sort of time when they were saying, oh, expecting coins to be like the thing that everyone wants to win. But now I feel like that might be that might be essence now, right? I think that might be the way that essence is going for them. And it'd be really interesting to see like how many people have claimed the tier 2 essence or that, or do most people just wait till they get the tier 5, tier 4 and take their chances on trying to get lucky and hit a bell in them on a tier 5 or something, which obviously can be done, and we've seen clips of it. But I wonder like what their research is showing them at the moment in terms of the reaction to essence.
Yeah, that would be interesting for sure. I think Mikey's got a good one here to kind of throw out there in terms of, like, we're talking about Champions League. We're talking about coming out the weekend here where it didn't have any problems. We didn't need to worry about rotation or anything like that. But with some of the star players, they might rest and rotate throughout, some of these weekends here and there. Don't get the 90, maybe they get 60, maybe they just flat out just sit towards, depending on the situation or whatever. And when we think about how many teams we had out this weekend, like if you did have to rest a star or two, how do you think you would do yourself, Stish?
I think like the point in question that Mike is raising specifically is like, for example, he's given Mbappe as an example. And I think that for me, in my experience of playing so rare in sort of Champions League into the rotation, it tends to be the case that you don't really see rotation until they've got out the group stage, or like if Real Madrid kind of guarantee that top place in the group stage, the next couple of games is when you're going to see rotation actually in the midweek, where they might rest Mbappe on the Wednesday, but they'll still keep him playing on the weekend in the league games. But then later on in the competition, in PSG, for example, last season, which was probably a bit of an anomaly because I think there was a potential bit of fallout there between Mbappe and the club, and he was getting rested into the weekend before every Champions League fixture in the knockout stages. So you kind of get used to the patterns of specific players, you kind of know. And I think with Mbappe at Real Madrid, I would expect him to be rotated out maybe the weekend before the first knockout round. Maybe the knockout rounds he might get rested, but I'd still expect him to play both games in the group stage and the weekend leading up to it. But I guess Real Madrid do have they've got Endrick there, they've got Arda Güler, they've got a lot of players that are really good that are probably not going to see minutes until those kind of rotations happen. So I think that we will see players like Mbappe rested a little bit more. Real Madrid will definitely be trying to win the Champions League as they do every season. So I'll be expecting that, and I think that I'll probably be entering him. He might be, in terms of things like that, I might be like fortunate enough that I've got quite a lot of champ cards, and with a player like Mbappe, if I think he might be rotated, if there's a slight chance, he might go into like team 3 as opposed to like team 1, and then in team 1 it might be, I don't know. I've got quite a lot of options in champ, for example. So examples like someone like Leon Bailey at Villa, who's probably going to be rested going into a Champions League weekend. Harry Kane, I think, is similar to Mbappe in that he might get rested once they've qualified for the knockouts and stuff like that. So I think it really depends on who the player is, how deep that squad is as well. And I would definitely say if you'll get used to those players' sort of patterns and those clubs' patterns, won't you, Quinny? I think it becomes a little bit, as the season goes on, it becomes more easy to predict. Whereas at these early stages, it's like we don't know until that first sort of weekend happens going into a Champions League weekend. So I think those first weekends we might be a little bit more cautious, but by like game week sort of 2 or 3 of the Champions League, you might have a rough idea of how it's going to pan out over the weekends into the midweeks.
Yeah, you definitely get a bit of a second nature. It becomes like second nature trying to work out some of the rotation. You kind of know where some of the players fall in the pecking order. I make you quite right there. One of the first things I thought when Mikey dropped this, but is like, you know, like for me personally, like I've actually put a bit of value in players that don't have midweek football, like for this weekend, because before we've had the announcements that we've had, the only thing you can kind of plan for is what's available at the weekend. You kind of know the divisional structure and the payout and all the rest of it. And I've not openly targeted guys and brought them in like, oh yeah, brilliant, this guy's not playing in Europe and he's made a transfer. But guys that I have, or I was maybe halfway thinking about, if I seen that they're not playing in Europe, then I actually quite like that wee bit of security you get knowing that, hey, you need to deal with cup games in the domestic setting like everyone else does. But I definitely think that if you are relying on, like, you've got 3 Mbappes, you know, and that's your main guy, and you know that like he's probably not on 90, he might not even start this one. It's a bit up in the air still. You need backup, you know, because like the leaderboards, like I was saying, I did quite well. I think a lot of people that have been preparing did relatively well enough, but you need big scores, you know, like you need big scores to still get in amongst it. And, you know, minute count is going to be a really important thing. And I'd probably bring this up as well, as we're talking about the difference to substitutes, getting 35 over 25. The only super rare team I had that pulled a box had 2 subs in it.
Really? That's interesting.
Both of them come off the bench and done like 44 or something like that. But also they're both 10 points better off. I had a good captain choice. I had a good something else in that team. I had an okay striker, I think. An okay striker, really good captain that did like 70 or something. And 2 subs that brought in like 40s. And I got a box. There's a little bit of super rare playing into that. I suppose you might not get that benefit in limited, but even at 1 player in the right division, and we're talking divisions here, you know, if you're picking a guy that might not start, I doubt this is your first entry. I doubt this is your priority lineup. Depends on where you are in your journey and your squad construction, obviously. But like, you know, Mikey said it earlier on in the chat, like you get some teams you can get lucky with because you've got that multi-entry. You can kind of hedge your bets a little bit, and you know, this guy's a bit risky, but if he happens, he happens. And I know those other 3 guys will start, and then this other guy I fancy as well. Stick them together and let's see how they run. So that was a nice wee kind of, I don't know if I would call it an eye-opener or anything like that, but when I kind of looked at the team that won the box, and I was like, hold on, both of those guys were on the bench. That's mad. It's something to add into the chat.
We kind of mentioned it before, didn't we, on one of the other pods about how I guess it was more leaning into like any cap modes as well. If you've got a player that has that L15 where they come in off the bench, that L15 is going to change in the next sort of 15 games, isn't it? Where coming off the bench is now 10 points better. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see if we do get any more sort of cap modes with the new sub rule. But yeah, that's a really good point though. Definitely going to be keeping that in mind over the next few game weeks, where if you know they haven't kind of like maxed out that substitute L15 just yet. But yeah, that's really interesting to hear as well that you managed to get lucky with that. I hadn't really paid too much attention to what kind of effect that had on the overall kind of score thing. But I think, yeah, like, you know, there definitely would have been a couple of teams in my lineups that maybe that have a DMP, whereas just coming off the bench probably would have made the difference for me into getting into cards. So I guess like just picking players that do like guarantee some kind of minutes on the pitch. You know, fullbacks tend to get switched in, don't they, quite a bit, and wingers, especially forwards. Yeah, the centre backs maybe not so much, but really interesting. Yeah, in terms of like picking cards, I'm definitely a little bit less worried about putting a lineup in that has a player that I'm expecting to start on the bench now. I will say that much, but yeah, it's good to hear that you're winning cards. I think that's the idea, right? Isn't it? That your subs are just as useful now.
We cheeky 10 super rare essence for my troubles, so don't mind if I do.
Exactly.
So there, Josh brings up a great one. He's saying within season being so low in terms of like we've seen a comment earlier from Rico, man. I don't know if he's caught this one, Stish, but La Liga in season D1 paid out more spots than I had entries. So everyone was a winner from the minute go, which is obviously an extreme example of what Sorare Josh is talking about here. And Classic being so bad for rewards, have either of you considered dramatically changing your strategy and selling off most of your classics to buy new season? I haven't, to be honest with you, because like I kind of mentioned earlier with the champ rares I've got, like all of the things I've got running, all the classic stuff, whether it be the super rare champ, that's just for champ essence super rare and try and get a T1 plus over the season. The champ rares are just to win Somervilles and sell them into the market. But the Celtic classics or the contender classics are to win in season rapidly. Like I think those cards can win me cards quickly. I've already got a few rewards and a team up and running already for in season after like 2 game weeks. And obviously I've got a bit of Japan that kind of helped that because that's in season still. So for those kind of 3 main kind of prongs of my gallery of my strategy of, you know, how I get into in season and compete to win money, how do I win cards that are worth selling in terms of the rares, and then what is my stretch in terms of the super rares? Like what is like a big chaser? I could do a big payout win if I did smash a division, if I did win the best prize imaginable. So that's not really changed for me in that regard. But I think if you were like a whole, and again, I've been talking about this quite a lot in member sections. And Josh, I'm not on the right screen. Yeah, you are a member, so you've probably heard me talk about some of this already. But when I look at galleries now, how they're divided into the 3 primary regions, champion, contender, challenger, it serves very little people good purpose to be as equally strong in them all, or making sure you maintain an equal level of strength and depth, because champion cards are far and away the best to win if you want to win cards to turn them around. And then the other divisions offer other things that I don't need to dive into. So if you've been like a 360 classic player where you've got lineups firing, kicking in like every classic division conceivable, if you're not scooping wins, I can see why that urge would come. And I would probably say if you're not get cards capable of scooping out, like if that's the amount of classics you've got and you're not picking up 4 or 5 boxes after the weekend there, you maybe do need to rethink the quality of guy you're using and how spread out your resources are and how spread out your quality is. Because we're not having that global setting other than under 23 where you can kind of lightning rod your 5 captains together or your 4 captains and a keeper that won't get killed and put them into pro all-star or put them into cap 270 or put them into, you know, whatever it might be. Then you're always going to have like, oh, that's my best challenger guy and that's my best champion guy and that's my best contender guy. But they'll never play together and they'll never help each other out. And that's the strength of squad you really do need at the top end of classics, certainly. I must say, just before I give to you, Stish, on this one, I'd played my bottom. I played D4 rare champ, and I got promoted with a score of under 300. I had a couple of good scores and a few crap scores, but like, you know, divisions do. I had big XP bonuses on them as well, which maybe helps a little bit. But again, maybe being a wee bit smarter with divisions might see a wee bit more success depending on how you're feeling about this. All, Josh, in particular.
That's a good point, actually, because I think I had a couple of promotions that I didn't. I'm like, oh, I got a few teams promoted, and I looked, and they were, you know, like my sort of Div 3 entries. Obviously, like the top end of the prize pools in those divisions are not quite as exciting as they are a bit higher up. But in terms of like yielding something, like getting a card win or cash if you're playing in season, sometimes it might make sense to put your strong lineup in your Div 3 and try and really finish like a bit higher up or whatever. Yeah, I think like maybe I've been like glossing over that a little bit when I've been doing my lineups recently, because I've had so much on outside of So Rare and obviously been on holiday and stuff like that. But maybe I haven't been thinking about that quite as much, but I definitely will. I think that's a good point you just raised there in terms of what division you're playing in and how competitive that lineup is in that division versus just like how competitive it is across the whole spectrum of people playing the game, because the divisions do seem to be working. I don't know about you, but
yeah,
you know, if you've got a team that looks slightly weaker on paper and it is going into one of those lower divisions, you do find that it doesn't, you know, it's not rock bottom of the division. It will find itself somewhere. It's playing against cards of a similar kind of value and usually, you know, like quality, because all of those massive galleries that have like the smashers, they're not going to not use, you know, their 4 Haalands that they own or their 5 Mbappes, are they? They're still going to use them, but they've got to a position now where all of their entries are D1, D2. Like, you're not going to be coming up against those people in Div 3 and 4 and 5. Do you know what I mean? So if you are one of those players that's almost there but not quite there, you've probably got a D3 or D4 entry there that you can utilize to try and win something on any given game week. So yeah, I think I'm definitely guilty of not looking at that myself. So that's a good point to raise. And
How do you feel about selling classics to buy in season at this stage of the game?
I don't like the idea of selling to buy in season. I like the idea of trying to like keep hold of the best cards I've got to win in seasons and then kind of figure out case by case. But I have won enough now to compete, I think, in contender at a pretty good level. And then I had enough like left over that's what went kind of, I thought, maybe I need to go and buy an in-season goalkeeper that opens that up a little bit more. So I've got probably one really good contender entry in season and one that if I get lucky or, my forward scores or whatever, then I should have potentially 2 decent contender cash entries there. Probably not quite D1, but D2, D3 cash entries that can do the business for me. So yeah, that's what I did with contender. And I think in challenger, I'm not maybe as strong, but I think that I've got a good enough contingent of classic champ cards that I should be able to churn a few card wins. And then I think depending on like who those cards are, like yourself, Quinny, I'll either shift them on to people who are really trying to play the game hard and fast, or I'll hold on to them and hope to maybe pick up a couple of decent cards with essence. I've got enough rare essence now to win a tier 5+, and I'd say that most of my essence is probably coming from champ at the minute.
Nice.
That's the thing, is like maybe it's not. Once we get into the crux of it, I'll melt. Get into the factory and like smash out another like Korean tier 2 or something like that, which would probably bolster my chances of winning cash. So it wouldn't be the end of the world. But yeah, I think in terms of turning cards around, champ wins are good at the moment. I've not really won any in-season champ worth shouting about just yet. I think the ones I did, I've probably moved on. But we're talking like 10, 20 quid, treating it a bit like a little threshold win. But yeah, I think if I won maybe a tier 2, tier 1 champ, that would be like, right, do I hold this, buy a couple more? That might be when the thinking comes in, like, if you get really fortunate and you win a Kane or an Mbappe in season, you might think, I can cash this in, it'd be a nice one. Or do you just go and buy 2 more, like mid kind of, tier 3, tier 2s? I don't know. Well, I think that'll come up as and when. But for me at the moment, my in-season offering in champ is not strong enough, and probably the same in challenger at the minute. So not really looking to chop any in. I'm thinking, maybe some of the bottom end of my gallery, but they're a bit harder to shift at the moment, aren't they? Because there's so much of it about.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's the way it kind of, like, when you're looking at each of your strategies, you do kind of gauge like how strong it is. So like my Celtic cards, I expect to win cards. I expect to be getting boxes in essence. And the champ cards, like you're saying there, Stish, like I can't feasibly look at them and think I'll get enough in season, quick enough, good enough, coherent enough that they'll fit together and off they'll run. But yeah, so I say if you've not got a strategy that feels that way, then you maybe need to make sure that you get one. And in terms of selling classics overall for in season, like the price of in season, especially outside a champ, isn't that bad. So it depends on, again, region of it all. I think if you've got 2 guys that are essentially around about the same price, even if there's a 5 to 10% premium, I'd be taking in season just for the option and the liquidity, even to sell them later on if they get a really good L5. You're more likely to sell an in season next month than you are a classic, certainly. So I like a lot about doing it in individual circumstances, if you know, rather than a wholesale, like I'm just going to sack off all the classics and just buy all in season. I think the time to do that is maybe past, so you're probably then just treading water and you're then chasing the dragon. You're then like, can I get on the leaderboard quick enough? And if you don't, the wheels can fall off it quickly. And once you do that 2 or 3 times, like, you can totally fuck your club up. Like just with half-built strategies everywhere, and this guy's no sold, and I put so much into this guy, and all the rest of it.
Definitely think it's better to be proactive than reactive. I think obviously anything can change in it, like, but if you've got a bit more of a long-term plan, like you're saying with your idea of trying to basically win cards to shift them, if you're happy with that, because before you know it, like you said, if you're chasing, in a few months' time, these in-season cards won't cost what they do right now. So if you wanted to jump in like December, you'd be paying probably a third of what you're paying for these cards now. So if you're winning them and selling them, you're making a 3x what you'll be making when you win them in December, January onwards, sort of thing. Depending on what they are, obviously. If they've got Champions League utility and the midweek kind of prize pools change a bit more, you know, that's the thing with this game is right now the strategy is what it is, and then in a month's time something might change and it might be something completely different. So I think you don't want to overdo it. Like, it's good to have all the moving parts there, and so that you can kind of be flexible when needed to be. But obviously that depends on the size of your gallery and all that. There's so many factors that come in. I think everyone plays the game differently, and yeah, I think knowing your cards, knowing what your kind of strengths and weaknesses are, and being able to flex in and out of those is probably the most important tool at the minute, because it does feel a little bit like we're still trying to figure out, we're in that teething zone, and things could definitely change between now and the end of this season.
Yeah, and Lilypad Gaming, love the avatar you've got there as well, by the way, with a great kind of contribution, kind of add on to what we're talking about here as well. And that kind of bridges us into another comment that I thought was really interesting on this kind of note, is thinking about XP and collection bonus and classics. Does it become a problem in the future? I think the main problem it becomes in the future is for people that think that's the only way, or just that's going to be the only way they'll deploy their team. Like, I'll just put a Celtic 5-man everywhere for 3 teams, for 6 teams, and just forget about it. Eventually, like that, you'll butt heads with people, and if you do want to make sure you're away from them, then you will end up drafting in differentials. You will then start to be a bit more creative with captain choices and stuff like that. So I don't think it's a problem for the leaderboard necessarily, because raw score is what makes the biggest difference above all of this, of course. This does help put you at the top. It does help split the difference, obviously. But I think the main problem of that becoming more common is then it forces people to be more creative with the team that they're putting together, because then people just will know, I can't just list my 5-man Aston Villa team and forget about it. I better get a captain from somewhere else, or the strikers positions up in the, whatever it is, you go and get the extra piece to make it a bit different and maybe better. And that'll be the thing, the way it shakes out, I think.
We was definitely saying this, weren't we? I think toward the end of last season, when all of the kind of, we got all the news of how things were going to change. And I've been saying it for ages that like stacks are not going to work unless you are like the #1 collector of that club. And as Lilypad been saying, from a limited point of view, he says, unless you have top tier players of decent XP, it's difficult to win at anything other than a box or two, which I would agree with, because if we do have like a PSG like 6-0 win, and PSV, I was saying, say they win 6-0, and there's like the 30 top places in that division are basically all PSV stacks. Unless you picked the right 5 and are the exact top collector, you're only competing with other collectors at that point. Whereas if you have 5 random players who all have a great fixture and they hit regularly and they all hit the big time, smash out 3 or 4 of them, get 100, then you're going to beat those PSV stacks. But that's the only way you can beat them. If you're playing a PSV stack, you're only playing against everyone else who's running a PSV stack, basically. So yeah, I would agree that, especially in limited, like running stacks is almost like, if you're happy to churn rewards, great. But if you want to actually win the divisions, stacks is not the way to go. You need to hit something a little bit. You need the differential. You need players from 2 fixtures in there. You need at least, ideally you want maybe 3 or 4 fixtures and they all come good. And then no one else has definitely got that lineup. So yeah, I think that's why I like playing the way I play and not stacks. But at the moment, it's the problem I've got is that the tournaments and the rewards are not there for those of us who like to play that way.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm not really a big, obviously outside the Celtic stuff, I'm not a mad stacker, but I'm definitely a big collection guy. And I've not got, outside of Celtic, many collections that break beyond 3%. And I think even if you've got like good combos of cards that are getting 3, I've got one collection that gets to 4. But if you can get a few collections that can at least get around that level, then let's say even when you do that strategy of like picking guys on their best fixture, like I'm looking at one here, I'll pop it on screen for a moment, but this is the D1. It was D2 last week, but got promoted. But also my D1 team this week. But Guardiola and Angelino are on 13, Kang's on 12, Castellanos is on 15. So like again, it's not really a stack or anything like that. But So you kind of need to have both of in that sense. So you need the stacking power to get the collection bonus. You need to have your guys coming from a collection that you see as viable, and there's plenty of cards that are usable from it. But you really then ultimately need to use them as he's a striker that's going to score. So he goes in the team, like regardless of anything else or whatever.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's kind of the way I pick my teams as well. Is like which goalkeeper. If I'm looking at my strongest lineup, I'm like which goalkeeper has the most chance of a clean sheet, and which striker has the highest chance of a 3 goals scored. And then I'm like, right, do they go together in a region? If they don't, then where are we looking at putting this? And then it's like, all AA defenders with clean sheets, defenders who have good, L15s, that kind of thing. So yeah, and I think by the time you've done that, 90% of the time you're not picking a stack anyway. You're picking the best bits of the best fixtures, and I think that's the way to go if you want to try and win divisions rather than just yield some cards with a stack that should do well every week. And I think it's a bit more fun anyway. It's not great when you're waiting on the fixture, the final fixture, like I found out on the weekend with George Broom, but it is also fun when it hits. It's a good feeling.
Yeah, say live by the sword, die by the sword, isn't it?
Definitely that. So going into this game week, Quinny, what are you thinking? Where's your head at? Where are you going to aim things? Looking at the kind of the prize pool and what's on offer and what divisions. Where's your head at for the week ahead?
Well, the midweek is pretty terrible. I've got a 4-man and 2 3-mans out or something like that. And I think a lot of people will be quite similar. But I'm ready. I know it's game week 3, but I'm ready for round 2. Of this kind of new Sorare format that we've got, the whole volume 2, as I've been calling it. I was on the stream the other night talking about how this isn't really a chapter. It is a totally new, everything we've done the last 5 years, 5 seasons, whatever it is, that's done now. Game week 1, we're at first 501 game weeks. They're in a book, they're on the shelf, and so I'm just kind of ready. I just want last game week to keep going in that sense. So I just want to get my guys back out, want the football to get going, and tap into rivals a little bit better. I meant to do that this weekend, but I've got so much going on. Me and you were talking, Sish, before we came on, but I'll be out the studio in the next 10 days or so. I'll be out by the end of the month, and I'm also going to be moving house and stuff like that. So I've got a lot of plates to spin and all the rest of it. And Sorare takes a lot of time and all the rest of it, and we're on our phones a lot, watching a lot of football, but I'm kind of looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to just having football on and just paying attention to that for, periods of the weekend, as it were. But in saying that, I'm actually away on Friday. It's my wedding anniversary this weekend. So me and Mrs. Quinn are away for some more for that end product on Friday and Saturday. Just I think, when did we bring that joke up last time? It might have been my last anniversary. But
it might have been, yeah. It was almost like I felt the punchline coming then. I was like, we've been here before.
Yeah, it really was last time.
We were away for a weekend somewhere and we were talking about getting some end product.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at this weekend. Looking forward to a wee bit of time on the beach house with the missus, and then catch up with the Celtic are back in action. So last weekend we had a cup game, non-SO5 covered. So this is the first European weekend where I've got everything, eye of the storm kind of period. How about you?
Yeah. Do you know what? Bringing that up as well, I wanted to. We'll get into it in a minute, but transfers and Matt O'Reilly and all that. Put a pin in that for a sec. The weekend ahead, I haven't really got into the crux of building my lineups just yet, but my hunch from speaking on the podcast today, and I'm thinking that I'm definitely going to be looking at that special. I think that probably suits my gallery, but I'm looking forward to the return of Bundesliga. I think the biggest headache I'm going to have is, do I enter Bundesliga Classic, or do I use those cards across my champ lineups to really make them pop? But I'm definitely looking forward to the start of the Bundesliga. I think that brings a lot of I don't know what the word is. I should be contending a lot higher up the leaderboards with those cards in my lineups. So, we're talking like Wirtz, Musiala, Kane, Kimmich. I've missed those the last couple of weekends where we've had more fixtures to run. So I'll definitely be looking forward to that, and I'll be considering entering that Bundesliga tournament. I haven't really been able to do that in Prem and in La Liga just yet. So yeah, I think the Bundesliga one is of interest to me, especially going into that first game week where we're all kind of thrown in the mix in terms of the divisions and stuff. So yeah, I'm going to be looking at that, and yeah, I think I'll be looking at the special as well. But I don't think I'll be going too heavy. Maybe the Super Rare special will be my Super Rare entry for the weekend, mainly. But then, yeah, I'm looking forward to a strong champ. I want to bring home some end product from champ this weekend. Definitely, I'll be disappointed if it isn't the case. I think Donnarumma and PSG last weekend kind of let me down a little bit, but I'm fancying a clean sheet this weekend. So Donnarumma in a good champ lineup, hopefully, and yeah, fingers crossed, getting those captain picks right again is going to be key. But in terms of, I was going to say, like, we just put a pin in it. What's going on with Matt O'Reilly? We've got loads of fit transfers going in. I think that Conor Gallagher's moved to Atletico Madrid finally. I think that's a good.
Well, this does kind of paint into what we're talking about, because Matt O'Reilly looks like he's going to be going to Bournemouth. That's also a huge contender card, leaving, contender and going into champion for me specifically. But also this morning, Sis, you might have missed this, but Man City have got 2 players on their short list to replace Julian Alvarez. Number 1 on the list, or the first name we've got at the very least anyway, is Kyogo. Who would have thought Kyogo to City? That's a
yeah.
But so in terms of SO5 consequences, like I could end up with 3 City strikers and 2 Brighton midfielders in a couple of minutes, which I don't know if that's better or worse. It's hard to work out. But yeah, lots of transfers going on. It's turning into, like, I recorded some videos before coming onto the podcast today, and I had like tons of transfer videos on the channel for a week or two there. There was something happening every other day. Clubs were really busy, but the last week it's kind of died a death, and it feels now in this final, we're as a point of recording this, we're at the final 10 days of the window basically. So maybe after this weekend, it feels like everything's probably going to kick into gear and teams are going to spend their budgets and round off the edges and just go and get those moves and get them over the line. Conor Gallagher, like you say, he's been pictured in Atletico Madrid training today. I did a video on the channel last week, maybe, looking at the impact he'll have and where he'll play in the team and such. If any of you want to check that out for Atleti or Gallagher in particular. But Kyogo seems like a downgrade on Alvarez. Yeah, of course, but and Charlie, you'll see the video, obviously editing it and stuff like that, but like Kyogo is like the perfect number 2 for Haaland. Like Kyogo doesn't give Man City any depth outside of that, but he gives you the perfect depth that you want for giving Haaland 20 minutes off at the end of every game, or if you want to play somebody other than Haaland in the League Cup or in the FA Cup or playing bottom of the table, Kyogo will do that job all day, every day. But yeah, I agree. He doesn't. Alvarez played all across the front line, alongside Haaland, off the right, off the left, next to De Bruyne. Like Kyogo's not going to do that.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I think Matt. I'll just say, I think you said Bournemouth, but I'm getting Matt O'Reilly to Brighton on my like.
Oh, did I say Bournemouth? It is Brighton. I don't know why I said that. I beg your pardon.
I think Brighton are quite a good, exciting side. They play good football. I think that's a good move for him, because if he does become a starter there,
if he takes the Pascal Gross role of taking all the set pieces and being that controlling midfielder,
exactly.
Like, he may only be at Brighton for 1 season. That's how good he'll be.
Well, hopefully, because it'll be great to have him in my champ options, especially in Super. Then I'll be even more needing of a Super champ goalkeeper. But Gallagher to Atletico, people are asking, does he improve SO5 wise? For me, yes. Don't know about you, Quinny, but I think Gallagher to Atletico Madrid feels like a perfect fit for him. In La Liga, I think he's going to win a lot of duels. He's going to really make that team purr in the midfield. I think he's a great signing for them.
I think it's great. I think it really opens Atletico up SO5 wise, as long as people keep delivering what they're supposed to, because Gallagher just pops up in pockets of spaces. He goes everywhere across the pitch, and they've really lacked a lot of mobility. When you're starting with Koke and RDP in midfield, like, yeah, they're good and they're fine and all the rest of it, but they really need high legs and like a guy that will go beyond the striker, a guy that will support the final third as well, as like cover the spaces and be tight and when you're out of possession. And I think, like Atletico Madrid couldn't really get this. Gives me, and I know it's an English thing, so maybe it's just because of that, but it was the same when they signed Trippier, like, but it gives me a big shades of that, where it's like they've just went and got the perfect guy for the system, where it's like that's the best guy we could get to play this job. Can we get him? Yes, we can, and he comes. So I think Gallagher will be good. Who does he replace? Vermeeren apparently is going to go out on loan to Leipzig. So
I think Leipzig would be really interesting as well, actually, in terms of if you look at Leipzig, and if we're talking about stacks, and if you like to play stacks, then one place you could probably play a stack is in the U23 division. And if you look at Leipzig as a potential stack for U23, if Vermeeren goes there, or if he doesn't, you're looking at Van der Voort in goal, Lukeba centre back, Vermeeren or Xavi Simons in midfield, and then Sesko up top. Then you've also got Antonio Nusa. We don't know whether he's going to be a main player there or not. But Leipzig have a really interesting U23 backbone now. So playing that in a U23 division versus playing it in anywhere else be really interesting to see how that pans out in terms of stacking. If playing U23, you don't tend to see as much of the stacking, but just because a lot of teams don't have that many complete smashers at U23, but Leipzig, especially if they sign Vermeeren, I think it'd be a great move for him. I can see that one happening. I was saying Leipzig, and there was a couple of other clubs interested, wasn't there? But I think Leipzig looks a really interesting move for him, definitely.
I've just went and Mikey's asking who he replaces, and I thought I can't remember how I was speaking about it in the video, but when I was looking at him, this was pre-Julian Alvarez, and I think he's 100% going to start, obviously. So I think it might even be Koke is the captain and stuff like that, but I think they'll keep with the three at the back, and I think it's going to be Griezmann, Sorloth, and Alvarez. I think so. Maybe it is Koke that gives way. Because Koke has passed it. He has past peak. I think we all know that. But he is club captain. But energy of Gallagher alongside playmaking DePaul. Maybe he's still missing that defensive midfielder. But if they're letting Vermeeren go, Koke is not a defensive mid anyway. Then maybe they're just accepting that's what it is. And it's more pressure on the defence to defend. And then the attack to attack. But I think Athletic could just be really frightening. Griezmann, Alvarez, Orloff. Who do they not score against?
Yeah. What about João Felix to Chelsea and going the other way? What do you think about that? Are we going to see any improvement of João Felix over the last few seasons? Because I'm not sold on him personally. I'm not sure.
Well, there was a semi-viral tweet that went out about it. Chelsea paid 20 million to loan him. It failed. He went to Barca. It failed. And now Chelsea have paid 60 million to buy him and gave him 200 grand a week for 7 years or 300 grand a week or whatever.
I don't get it. I don't get the sense of that, and the whole FFP and it's all such a mess. I'm not sure
Sterling's going to go, isn't he?
Why would you let Gallagher go to bring in Felix and spend more money on it doesn't make any sense at all to me.
Yeah, so maybe replace Jackson. I think he's an upgrade on Jackson if he becomes Felix, because Jackson for me isn't the finished article. But look at the team, man. It's just fucking ridiculous.
Crazy. I mean, no Chelsea fans can predict the starting 11 this season. I was with my father-in-law, who is a Chelsea fan, when the teams came out on the weekend, and I had my phone up, was try and predict the starting 11, see how many you get. And I think he managed to get 6. And, he's been watching Chelsea all his life. So I have to go Chelsea fans, I mean, what's going on? Someone in the chat, Johnny TH, Chelsea are a bit like me on So Rare. Yeah, I think a bit like all of us.
See, for Sorare, that's a great strategy. And depends how you want to look at it. If buying a Chelsea collection this year could be super good because all these guys are going to leave. And play for other people, maybe sooner rather than later. But even for your own collection, if you just imagine that was your club and you were building it, one of the things we've not really spoke about yet, it's definitely a part of Sorare Volume 2, is the amount of guys you're leaving out. And I think that is if you've got a strong gallery, that is something that you need to have built into the writing, built into the thing, is guys will be in training. Guys won't make your team this week because there's not enough places to play them, perhaps. But that's the bigger that headache is, the better your teams are. If you don't have that headache, you're playing with not enough players, not enough good players, I think. So that's not a bad strategy, as long as your guys end up playing, unless you're buying this Chelsea squad and then you literally have backups that don't play, or they get loaned out to a different division that doesn't correlate to the rest of your gallery or something. But generally, you do want to be hoovering up talent, I think, especially for Classic, and if you can afford it in season.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I think it's a lot to that leaving out good cards is painful, but it has happened a lot since the switch in the last few weeks. I've noticed, unless you've got loads of goalkeepers as well. And I think I mentioned it before that I bought a few limited goalkeepers just so that I can at least use them in limited divisions. If you've got super rares that are just no good to you, you can chuck them in limited entries. So if you've got enough goalkeepers, you can always pick up a few limited goalkeepers and just try and make use of those cards that otherwise are just not even in training, because otherwise you're not at least using them to get those XP points up. Especially if you've got limited entries that are in like D4, D5 that you're not worried about going up and down, and you don't want to maybe ruin your like super like limited entries. But if you've been on the platform as long as we have, you probably mostly got a rare gallery, and then use those limited slots to almost like training. I definitely think you can pick goalkeepers up now for like next to nothing, can't you? That are playing. So limited ones, get a couple of really cheap limited goalkeepers. They don't need to be particularly good. They just need to play. If they play, you're in with a shout of winning something. And at the very worst case, your cards are getting XP for being used. So that'd be my tip.
Awesome. That's been a great one. Stishy boy, we've went for a fair wee bit. We kind of ran out of steam on Sorare Volume 2 for this week. I'll definitely be looking back to looking at this time next week when we're back to see how we get on for game week 3 and everything else. I'll be going hard across all the divisions. Celtic hopefully reigning supreme, and I'm hoping to keep this little champ Euro strategy I've got. Like, I was really glad to get that proof in the pudding game week 1, winning a card with the best team, and then the bad team still got promoted and pulled some essence, just kind of job done. So hopefully it wasn't a fluke. That's what I'm hoping. I'm looking for proof of concept now. We've got proof in the pudding. It does work now. We're looking for a wee bit of proof of concept. It's not just a one-off. It does happen on repeat almost, within reason. As long as guys score good points, that is.
I will be rooting for you, mate. I'll be keeping an eye out for you in the on the leaderboards, definitely.
And what about yourself for this weekend? How are you feeling?
I feel pretty good. I think a lot of my good cards have got good fixtures, so I will be expecting big things in champ. I need my champ lineups to smash. So I'm hoping that like my Bayern, Barca, Real Madrid cards can do the business. PSG have got a good fixture at home this weekend as well. So I'm quietly confident. I'll definitely be going back into that contender and hoping that I can make amends on the disappointments of last weekend. So fingers crossed for an upgrade on the end product. Quinny, enjoy your weekend, mate. Hope you get your end product away and we can catch up next week. I don't know if there's any innuendos around card openings and stuff like that. I mean, we probably
no, we'll leave that for another day, perhaps.
I think we've taken this dark and dangerously enough already. So we'll end it there, mate.
Yeah, and to everyone that's watching us live, thanks very much who's been here for the recording of the show. If you're watching us after we've been live, you're catching on Spotify or Apple or Amazon or whatever. Don't forget to rate and review, like and subscribe, share and retweet, all that good stuff. And we'll catch you next week.